A lot of anime come out every year, way too many for me to even hope to watch them all. So I end up needing to settle for just a few. Usually what I end up watching comes down to what catches my eye, whether through snippets of the show itself or discussions about it online. Sometimes, though, it takes a little bit of time for that to happen. This was the case with the show I'll be talking about today, Paripi Koumei, otherwise known as Boy Kongming. It's really not the sort of show that would have been naturally on my radar. It sounds silly, both in premise and in title, and I'm not particularly into music anime. But then I saw the OP. Actually, I saw a Hololive cover of it first, then found the original. Well, it's been stuck in my head ever since then, and I knew I'd have to check out the show after that happened. All part of Kongming's plan, I guess. You just can't resist the... So I went into it knowing almost nothing about the show itself to see how it went. And, well, I loved it. Easily one of my favorite shows of 2022. Considering how much I enjoyed several other shows last year, like Kaguya-sama, Spy Family, and like Chorus Recoil, that's saying something. In fact, your boy Kongming may have pulled a dark horse move and taken the #1 spot now in February 2023. It was actually a shock to me, not just how enjoyable the show was, but how it resonated with me on a personal level. And it's also another one of those shows, like Girls on Panzer, that takes a premise which sounds ridiculous on paper, but produces a gem. But enough introduction. I'll give a brief summary of the show, then launch into what I really want to talk about and focus on, how your boy Kongming is, at its core, a message of hope to anyone trying to make it in a creative field. As I always do, especially with shows I enjoy, I recommend you watch it first to avoid spoilers. This isn't a super plot-heavy show, but I'll definitely be spoiling some things, so there's your warning. I won't be getting too deep into the story details, but in order to talk about the theme I want to discuss, it'll necessitate some spoilers. To sum things up, we begin in the year 234 with Zhuge Liang, otherwise known as Kongming, is on his deathbed. I'll be referring to him as Kongming from now on since I can confidently pronounce that. As he dies, he wishes he can be reborn in a time without war. And moments after he dies, he wakes up in Japan, specifically in Shibuya, on Halloween night. Somewhat understandably, he thinks he's in hell at first. And no one looks at him twice in his traditional getup since, well, Halloween. In the course of his booze-filled evening, he hears our other main character, Eiko, singing in the nightclub he's been dragged to, and falls in love with her music, while being pretty much the only person in the nightclub who is actually paying attention to her performance. The next morning, Eiko finds him passed out on the street and decides to help him out. She brings him to her place and later answers about 1,000 questions about the current world. She also gets him a job, courtesy of a boss who's a Three Kingdoms nerd. Near the end of the episode, we learn more about what drew Eiko to music, and also that, discouraged by her inability to advance her career, she's considering quitting. Kongming convinces her not to, and pledges to be her tactician, to utilize his own talents to help her achieve her dream. And that's really what the show is about, in a story sense. It's about Kongming using his skills to help Eiko succeed. And in doing so, it also serves as a bright message of hope to anyone struggling to succeed in a creative field. While the show is obviously focusing on music and the music industry, which is not something I know much about or think about too much since I don't do music myself, the struggles it portrays and the message it has applies to everyone trying to make it in a creative field, whether you're an author like me, an artist, a musician, or even a YouTuber. What's especially notable about this show, though, is that while it's obviously fiction and things work out by the end, it really doesn't shy away from showing you the real challenges of trying to do something like what Eiko is doing. With the reveal about Karasawa, Nanami's manager, at the end of the season, we even see someone who failed to achieve his dream and how that affected the rest of his life. More than just providing more nuance and depth to his character, it's another example of the show being more real with us than one might expect. For many, perhaps most, it won't work out in the way we dream, but that's no reason to give up. That bit of harsh reality contrasts with the success we see over the course of the season, and helps the show strike a perfect balance between being relatively realistic and providing that vital spark of hope. Let's look at the struggles our major musical characters endure. Eiko, despite being clearly talented, lacks both the self-confidence and the knowledge of how to market herself and her music. You can see the toll it takes on her by her being about to give it up before Kongming makes his offer. Speaking from personal experience, marketing is the hardest part of writing, or of doing anything creative. No matter how great your stuff is, if you can't get it in front of enough of the right people and can't convince them to support it, it doesn't really matter. So it really can be demoralizing when you write, draw, or sing something that you know is great, that a handful of fans think is great, but that you can't effectively sell. Not enough to make a life of it, at least. That little voice going, "What are you wasting your time struggling with this for? Give up already." is always ready to whisper into your ear. Even when you experience some measure of success, though, it's often not smooth sailing. We see that in the show with Kabetaijin, who shot quickly to the top of his game, only to be so worn down by that initial success that he can't take the pressure. So much so that his physical health suffers along with his mental health. Even if people like your first books, drawings, or songs, you always worry. What if they don't like the next one? How do I keep up with their expectations? That could be as crippling as a lack of success. And, going back to that first struggle, what's an artist to do when they just can't make it work? You have bills to pay after all, and if you're married and have a family, other people to support. So it sometimes becomes a choice between giving it up altogether, or selling out, as Nanami and her friends did. People love to bash those they consider sellouts, but so often it's not motivated by greed, rather by desperation to at least do something close to what they love. Then they end up trapped, not being able to really do what they want, but with no choice if they want to keep making a living. Nanami's story explored that brilliantly, with really no exaggeration required. But while your boy Kongming doesn't shy away from showing these very real and very common struggles which people like Eiko, me, and others experience, it nevertheless provides a great deal of hope. And not simply in a wish fulfillment sense, via us seeing Eiko, Kabetaijin, and Nanami get through their struggles. In fact, the very first episode puts a lot into perspective. After her first encounter with Kongming, Eiko asked the bartender who that was, and he replied, "A fan." Kongming reminds Eiko of this later, when she claims she has no fans. You never know who will be affected by your work. Who will be that single loyal fan whose life your work affected positively, and who would be genuinely sad if you gave up. Maybe it's not 1, but 2 or 20. Still tiny numbers, but people who you managed to reach. You never know who that one person will be. The one person who sees your work, loves it, and decides to tell someone else, or help you out in some way. Most of us won't be fortunate enough to have a Kongming enter our lives to almost single-handedly change the course of our lives for the better. But we all have someone who is there for us, whether it's our parents, a spouse, a handful of fans, or somebody else. Yes, the support most small-time authors, artists, or singers have in real life can't do it all for us. But that just means it's more up to us to find our way. Even in your boy Kongming, Kongming isn't magically doing everything for Eiko, as he tells her more than once. His help is invaluable, of course, but in the end, she still has to be the catalyst for her own success. He and others could point her in the right direction and help give her the opportunities to succeed, but she ultimately had to find herself on her own, because that's the only way you'll truly feel you succeeded, to gain or regain the confidence that you need to find success. Sometimes, many times, that requires taking a risk. We see that in this show as well, when Eiko has a choice to make, one that only she can make. Take a guaranteed spot in a small festival, which would help her career but not in a big way, the safe choice, or take a big risk and try to compete for the spot in the massive festival. By that point, she'd been inspired with enough confidence to take that risk. 100,000 likes or bust. When these key moments come, usually with little to no warning, we have to choose to seize them. That's kind of what happened to me on this channel. When my silly meme video went viral a few months ago, even though I only managed 13,000 likes, and I gained a couple hundred subs quickly, I knew it was time to finally get off the fence and start making real, regular content here. Something I considered doing for a while, but kept putting off for various reasons. And look at us now, closing in on that big 1,000 subscriber milestone. If I hadn't seized that opportunity and taken the chance, I'd never have been able to reach all of you and make videos that you're all thankfully enjoying. Where this will all take me, who could say? But taking that chance was clearly the right choice. I've been blessed with more success so far, both on YouTube and with my writing, than many others have had. YouTube you could see, and with my writing, I've sold a bunch of books, run a few small but successful crowdfunds, and had decent sales at conventions. Still a very long way from where I hope to be, but I have to be thankful for what I have. And assuming things keep growing, God willing, I'd love to be able to pay it forward. That's because support and hope are what fledgling creators need more than anything else. Yes, we need a dose of realism, but there is a right and a wrong way to do that. I was mostly an observer of a massive, rather nasty Twitter argument, an argument on Twitter, shocking I know, last week, where several very successful authors did things the wrong way. A lot of the things they wrote and said was technically correct and realistic, but they did so in a nasty, unpleasant way for no good reason, and they just came off as jerks trying to discourage people. Your boy Kongming does it the right way, showing us the challenges we'll face and making it clear that success is by no means guaranteed, but also providing the hope and encouragement we all need to even make the attempt to achieve our dreams in the first place, to do the best that we can and see where that takes us. Eiko's big song at the end of the season, Dreamer, was as much a message to people like me in the audience as it was to her friend Nanami. And to be honest, it touched me more than I expected. I'm not even generally a fan of this kind of music. That's why, as I mentioned at the start of this video, this show might have swiped the title of my favorite 2022 anime, in part because of how it spoke to me personally. And it was pretty well timed too, as I'm preparing to launch my most ambitious creative project ever pretty soon. I hope to share a special video talking more about that next week. So, if you've gotten this far in the video, and haven't already done so, I recommend you check out your boy Kongming, especially if you're like me and aiming to make a career in any creative field. Yes, it's a very challenging, stressful journey, and you might not succeed. But if you give up and you don't give it your all, you'll never know what might have been. And even if you just reach a few people in that attempt, you'll have done more than most who never even try. On that note, if you enjoyed this video and like to support me and what I do here, check out the links to my books and light novels below in the description. A link to my Patreon is down there too, and I've just started sharing some really awesome sneak peeks at my upcoming project, along with other perks, such as early looks at these videos. I've also got some cool merch over on TeePublic. If you have any thoughts on this video, or on your boy Kongming, definitely share them in the comments below. What do you think of the show? And if you are also trying to make a career in a creative field, did it have as much of an impact on you as it did me? And if you'd like me to talk more about this show, or about things related to being an indie author, let me know. Next week, back to our regularly scheduled Girls and Panzer content. Also, that 1,000 subscriber milestone is closing in fast, so make sure to subscribe. That's all for now, so until next time, remember, don't give up. Success rarely happens overnight, and you never know what could change to help you get there.